All right. Quentin, if you want, I guess it would be okay since we do have a quorum now. We've got Miss Willis and we've got Mr. Speed, and then we have Mr. Billingsley and you. So we could go ahead and start if you'd like so that we don't get too far behind.
Sounds good.
Okay. All right, great. So you have the agenda pulled up?
Yes.
All right, perfect.
I'll go ahead and call our meeting to order. The first item on the agenda, one point of order question, Dr. Kamachari or Avery. Do we have to say where we are calling from, or we don't have to do that now?
Well,
Yes, actually, you should.
Say that again, Avery.
I believe they should, yes,
Okay.
state where they are. Even though they're not making their place available to the public, it would still be good to have them, on the minutes.
Okay,
Okay.
so if you'll, as you make a motion or as you introduce yourself, if you would please state where you are for the record then.
Good morning, Quentin Ransburg, 101 Ridgefield Drive, Madison, Mississippi.
Mr. Billingsley?
I'm William Billingsley. I'm at 4600 County Road 23 in Carroll County, Mississippi.
Okay, Miss Willis?
Hi, good morning. I am still working remotely. The address is 1955 University Boulevard, Houston, Texas.
Okay, Mr. Speed?
I'm at 4166 Eastover Drive, Jackson, Mississippi.
Okay, and Lisa Petrolia, I'm at 310 East Ridge Drive in Brandon, Mississippi. Okay, all right, we're good then, Quentin.
May I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
I'll so move.
Thank you, Mr. Billingsley. A second?
I second.
Thank you, Ms. Willis. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Next, we'll have approval of the minutes from the March 9th meeting. Maybe give everyone a moment to review those if you haven't. It was in your packet.
Jean, was that you that just joined us? I don't see Jean's number.
I move we approve the minutes as written.
Thank you, Mr. Billingsley. A second, please.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Willis. All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you. Next, we have the report of the chair. I don't necessarily have a report. I just want to thank the charter authorizer staff. I know we've been working in some untraditional under some untraditional circumstances, and I appreciate how you pulled this meeting together, as well as all of the preparation that's had to happen before we've gotten to this point. So kudos to Dr. K and Dr. Vanda and everybody else with the charter authorizer. Jordan, we really appreciate you guys helping us out and getting us all tech savvy this morning.
Well, thank you. We appreciate that.
Report of the executive director.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This morning, first of all, again, good morning and welcome to everybody, and welcome to our visitors who are listening remotely. I appreciate everybody's flexibility this morning as we work through a couple of technical issues and try to roll through this as seamlessly as possible, since it's new for some, and then for others, I guess you're savvy technical folks and you won't have any issues with it. But The first thing I'd like to do this morning is say thank you to our schools publicly. They have been providing some amazing support for our children and our families throughout these unprecedented times. I've heard stories of hope and stories of gratefulness from families who appreciate the work that's being done. Communities around Mississippi are stepping up. They're stepping in ways that are unprecedented and that we could never have ever seen or imagined before. So my thanks goes out to all of our schools, and again to Jordan and Denise and Avery and Vanda. This has been certainly a unique time to try and work under these circumstances. So much appreciated to everybody. For my report this morning, I just have a very few brief updates. I could have gone on and on, but in light of the efforts to communicate through Zoom and so forth and so on, I think I'm going to try to keep it as brief as possible. But one of the things that I want to point out in particular is the new website. And I shared with you guys the link to the new website a few weeks ago. If you have not had time to go and take a look at it, I encourage you to do so. Jordan has done an amazing job. I cannot say that enough. The website is up to date with resources. It's up to date with information for our schools. It's up to date with information for our families, our stakeholders. I would even say NACSA and our work with them has been incredibly impressed with our website. And so for board members, I would encourage you, if you haven't had a chance to go on, check it out. It is professionally done. It, again, is up to date, and there is a variety of information included in it. You'll see links to our charter schools, links for job opportunities, the application process, recent news, our Twitter feed, our calendar, the board meetings, everything that you could want or need from the charter authorizer is on there. So Jordan, again, thank you for your hard work on that. She's had a support person at ITS who has helped her through some of her challenges. She, I think at one time, thought she broke the internet, so she was a little concerned, but we've lived through that too. So she's managed to get it all up and looking great. So thank you, Jordan, for your hard work on that. Okay, so the next item on my report then is something we decided to do just about a week ago. I thought it would be good to reach out to our schools and do a survey to them so that we could collect some information simply around communication and support at these unprecedented times. And what we wanted to be able to do was just to collect responses from the schools around areas such as instruction, distance learning, how to support the special needs population, policy and practice and accountability, and the waivers that are available through the federal government as well as through the Department of Education, the communication with internal and external stakeholders. And we put together a COVID-19 survey that incorporated about 10, if I misspeak that, Jordan, help me, but I think we landed on 10 questions with one additional question around their willingness to share if they had a staff member who was skilled in counseling services or support services for children who might need something beyond what we're able to do, even through Zoom, where we had a counselor that a school was willing to share with other schools. And the data that we've gotten back so far has been very, very, very good. Everybody seems appreciative of the timely information, the quantity of information, the quality of information. And I have encouraged our schools day in and day out to be sure that whatever information they're collecting and they're using is accurate and factual, because there is a lot of information out there on Facebook and on Twitter and all through the grapevine. And it's most important for us as leaders and educators and school leaders to make sure that the information we share is accurate. And so I've encouraged them to reach out to only resources that they can trust, like the state government, the MDE's website, the federal USDE website, and not just articles. you know, articles can put their spin on something and might be misleading. So we haven't gotten all of our responses back, but I'll continue to keep the board updated on those responses. Monitoring update, the CSP, we were supposed to be monitored. All schools in 2017 who received their grant were supposed to be monitored this year. That monitoring visit has been pushed back. And so that's a win for us. And so we're grateful for that. We'll have another year to put together everything we need for the CSP monitoring visit for our schools and for the authorizer board as well. The good news is we are making progress on our performance measures. Vanda has completed the annual report, and we'll have that ready to go out by the deadline, which is April the 1st. And we feel good about where we are. We're making baby steps in some places and giant leaps in others. So we're really moving and progressing towards those goals and outcomes that were projected in the original grant that was written back in 2017. We had a recent drawdown. Denise, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we landed at $18,635.
Correct.
Okay, great. Annual report, the annual report for the legislature, the work on that will begin April the 6th. I have a call with Bellwether on that afternoon. So we will begin work on that diligently moving forward. Finally, just a quick reminder to the board, if you have not completed your statement of economic impact through the commission, the Ethics Commission, please do so. We talked about it briefly during our March the 9th meeting. So if you haven't done that, or you don't have access to and you need access to the link to complete that, it's a simple form, it's a simple process. I've already done it. I think Quentin's already completed his. And so if you haven't done so, please do so. You can refer back to the March 26th email that I sent that has the link in it, or you can just give me a call or shoot me an email, and I'm happy to walk you through it. And that actually completes my report this morning. Does anybody have any questions or comments or concerns? Everybody can still hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, great.
Thank you, Dr. Comacharias. Denise, we'll move to the financial report, please.
Okay. One of the things that I wanted to talk about was what has happened since the last time we met. And one of the things that happened was the legislature convened. And I wanted to just kind of talk about the fact that Dr. Comacharia went to the legislature. It's the first time that I remember since the board started that we had any dialogue with our budget analyst. And then she also did a presentation to, I guess it was the education committee.
House Ed.
Yeah, and it was attended by even some senators. It was very, very well attended. All of the staff was there, and Avery was there. And Dr. Kay did a great, great job with her presentation. Beautiful PowerPoint, and really explained what the board was doing and gave some accomplishments. So I just wanted to commend her for that, because that's the first time it's ever happened.
Thank you, Denise.
Sure. And then, like I said, we had a meeting with the budget analyst, and that was the first time that had ever occurred. And there's some good relationships that have developed since then. And I think that will do us very well as we move through the legislature when they reconvene to get our budget going. I prepared the financial report, which is in front of y'all, effective March 15th. I did that a little bit early so y'all would have time to look at it. And that gets us just before the close of the third quarter. And so we would expect to be at 75% of expenditures. We're about 60% expending to our budget. So we're a little bit low, but a lot of times our expenses hit this last quarter. So I still think we're right on target. Don't want to do a whole lot of projections on where we're going to be by the end of the year, just because we're in such uncertain times. I think we may have a better projection at our next board meeting. And then we're still on target to spend all of our general funds, which is one of the things that we always try to do. And I don't think we'll have any problem there. We're also on target to have a larger cash balance going into the next fiscal year than we had coming into the current fiscal year. And I think the only other thing that I was going to point out was that was on the federal grant, which Dr. Comacheri already talked about, that we did make the first payment to LaFleur Legacy, which was something. So that's basically, unless y'all have questions about any specific line item, what I wanted to report.
Questions? All right, we'll move to our next item, Applications Committee.
Okay, well, since we do not have a committee for applications right now, we're shy a couple of board members, and Quentin and I had a conversation about this, and so I am actually going to present this section with the board's permission. I'll proceed with the report for the application committee then. Any opposition to me handling that, or are everybody good with that?
I'm fine with it.
Okay, very good. All right, so during the committee report then this morning, you're going to be provided opportunities to do a couple of things. You're going to be able to review the eligibility findings from the letter of intent, which is a document found on page 13 in your packet. And then you're going to have an opportunity to review the draft recommendations for our schools that are in renewal. And that is beginning on page 14 with a task summary timeline of action that's been taken. But before we go into those findings for eligibility and or the reports, I want to take just a minute and remind the board of its statutory obligations with respect to our mission. So under section 3728(7), the board should be reminded this morning that it's described in that section that our obligation and duty is to simply authorize high quality charter schools, particularly those schools that are designed to expand opportunities for underserved students. This is consistent with the purposes of the chapter and subject to the restrictions and conditions that are prescribed in that subsection. The Mississippi Charter School Authorizer Board may authorize charter schools within the geographical boundaries of any school district, and that certainly is limited to those districts that are rated D and F. And I can tell you that the 2020 Call for Quality Schools was released on January the 31st. And on March the 13th of 2020, we received 6 letters of intent from interested applicants. Every one of those applicants are previous applicants, either from last year or years prior, and each one of those applicants are eligible based on the initial criteria to move into stage 1 of the RFP process. There are 4 operators that are identified as new schools and 2 operators that are identified as existing, with one of those schools existing in Mississippi and one of those in Tennessee. I'll give you just a minute, if you would, to look at the list, and that'll be found on page 13. And since we're online and everybody doesn't have access to everything and can't see all the documents, I'm happy to read into the record those, which will be, by the way, made available on our website. But I'm happy to read into the record the list of schools that are actually applying and eligible. So number 1 is Argy Peters Logan STEM Academy, a new operator who has proposed a school in Holmes County to open in 2021 with grades K3 in year 1, grades K5 at capacity. And that district is currently rated F. So they would be eligible to apply in that district. Excel Community Schools, Inc., another new operator, Greenville Public School District, 2021 operational, K1 and 6th grade in their initial year, K12 at capacity. They were not initially eligible and had to submit a missing document, but did so within the timeline that was required, and they are eligible to move forward into stage 1 as well. The next school is Kaleidoscope Schools, an existing school out of Tennessee. They are proposing a school in South Delta in the Sharkey School District in that county. Opening in 2021, a K-3 capacity at K-5. Again, not eligible initially, but submitted their articles of incorporation for the state of Mississippi and now eligible to move forward. The next school is Piney Woods Preparatory School, an existing school who has submitted an application to locate a school in the Jackson Public School District, operational in year 2021, beginning grades 5 through 8 in year 1 and 5 through 8 at capacity. Also, initial eligibility was a yes, and then Jackson is still rated a D. By the way, all of these schools will remain their status from this past year based on the action that's been taken by the Department of Education and the State Board of Education in terms of accountability for this school year. Then Voices for Education is the next one. They are also a new operator. They propose to open a school in the North Bolivar School District in 2021, grades 7 through 12, or 7 through 10 initially, and 7 through 12. Initial status eligible, they were eligible, and North Bolivar is an F district. So that is the current list.
I think you skipped SRI for those who
I
don't have.
surely did. Thank you, Mr. Billingsley. I skipped right on over SR1. That is a new school to propose to operate in Canton Public School District. Those of you that were with us last year will remember SR1. They are proposing a 2022 opening school year for grades K1 and grade 5 at capacity, and they are eligible to move forward. So any questions about that particular document? Okay, all right, well, moving forward then. Okay, so as we move into reviewing the draft renewal reports, again, I want to remind the board that you took action back in September to approve the renewal guidance and the renewal application so that boards or schools that were in renewal could receive their guidance, their training, their application before the deadlines, the annual performance framework report, the statutory deadline of September the 30th. They could receive all of that and their training going forward, which took place on October the 19th. The process for renewal, as you know, is codified in section 37, 28, 33. But at this point, I want to take just a minute and again read into the record and point out some of the things that will be important as we move into the reports and decision making around renewals. The first area I'd like to point out under the code section 37, 28, 33 is section A1. A charter may be renewed for successive 5-year terms of duration. The authorizer may grant renewal with specific conditions for necessary improvements to a charter school and may lessen the renewal term based on performance, demonstrated capacities, and particular circumstances of each of those charter schools. In making charter school renewal decisions, the authorizer must ground the decision in the evidence of the school's performance over the term of the charter contract in accordance with the framework set forth in the charter contract. And that section is incredibly important. When we met with the schools in renewal back in October, we stressed that over and over again, the importance of the decision around renewal being over the term of the charter contract and not simply a one section in time, one site visit, another site visit, one conversation with the school, one report. It's not about that. It is about the evidence over time and the importance of improving over time. You're also to ensure that the data that we make, that is used in making the renewal decision, is available to the school and the public, which means that these documents that you receive today will be made public. They'll be available on our website as in a draft form, and then finally approved with your support and approval and final recommendation in April. Finally, a public report will have to be made summarizing all of the evidence that is based on our renewal decision. So any questions about and that's just a simple overview, guys. That is not the entire code section. That's a simple overview just of reminders of your obligations, the board's obligation, and our obligations to communicate, to set forth in our reports what's required and how we need to respond from here. So are there any questions or comments or concerns from the board regarding anything I've just shared?
Are any of the renewal dates being modified or being revised based on the current COVID
That
crisis?
is a great question. No, and the answer is no. We were moving along in just right along in the timelines that were outlined in statute. And so we've not asked for any relief there. As long as we're able to continue making progress, the schools in renewal will have time to respond to these draft reports. And then if the board is able and continuing to be able to meet on the 20th, then you'll have an opportunity to make your final decisions then. And we'll meet those statutory requirements in terms of dates and deadlines.
Okay, thank you. That's great.
Sure. Great question. Any other questions? Okay. All right. So the next thing then in your packet is simply a renewal task summary, and you can see where that process began in October with the renewal guidance training for schools and renewal that I referenced just a few minutes ago. You can also see that in January, the application cycle began, as well as securing external evaluators. So on January 7th, I'm sorry, an invitation was sent out for our external evaluators. And January the 9th, those evaluators were confirmed. On January the 23rd, the evaluators received the application and the rubric so that they could begin familiarizing themselves with the rubric that was designed to align to the application as it was designed, developed by Mississippi First, presented to you as a board and approved in September. And then a rubric was developed in conjunction with that. So between January 23rd and January the 30th, evaluators were able to take time to look at the applications. January 31st, the renewal applications were received by the authorizer board. And then between the 31st and the 20th, the evaluators then reviewed, they rated and scored the applications against that published set of criteria. February the 19th, the evaluators submitted their completed rubrics. And on February the 21st, all of that data was triangulated. And you see behind this document, and I'm going to hold it up for the board, but you see behind this document, the renewal task summary, you will find the record of performance for each school, beginning with Midtown. And so if you don't have any questions about this document, we'll move into the next section. Okay, see no questions. All right, so on pages 15 through page 21, you'll find the summary report of the Midtown Public School renewal. You'll find the record of performance, record of academic performance, effective academic program. Somebody else joining us. And you'll have each one of the evaluators anonymously noted by evaluator 1, 2, 3, or 4, and their ratings. And I won't go through all of those ratings, but rather the summary recommendation report for the school, which will be found on page 24 in your board packet. And for the record, I'd like to read in this, and this will be your first summary recommendation in draft form for Midtown Public Charter Schools. The evaluation committee has recommended a 3-year renewal with conditions for Midtown Public. With respect to their record of performance, the effective academic program approaches expectations. The financial success of the school meets expectations, and the organizational success approaches expectations. Board, you all received this document several days ago. Before I go into the conditions for renewal, do you have any questions? Okay, seeing none, we'll move forward. Again, for the record, I'd like to review these conditions out loud. If you will turn to page 10, I'm sorry, page 31 in your board packet, which is actually page 10 of the report. I'd like to take a minute and go over these conditions with the board. So the conditions for renewal. This is section 4 of the report. Midtown Public Charter School shall establish performance targets in partnership with the Charter School Authorizer Board by June 15th of 2020. Areas for improvement are directly related to the current contract terms and/or the Mississippi Charter School Performance Framework. Performance targets shall be measurable, they shall be time-specific, and they shall reflect areas of improvement in the following areas. Noted on that page are the statutory references 372831 and 372833, of which we reviewed earlier. Academics, Midtown Public Charter School shall meet all 3 of the academic targets in the following years. Midtown Public Charter shall be rated a D or higher in 2021, a C or higher in 2022, and a C or higher in 2023. Annual performance targets must be set by the charter operator in conjunction with the authorizer board and designed to help the school meet applicable federal, state, and authorizer expectations. Midtown Public Charter School is encouraged to select a predictive indicator of student success for English language arts and mathematics. A formative assessment instrument will allow student data to be disaggregated and analyzed quarterly and reported to the authorizer board during quarterly board meetings. The authorizer board must approve the quality and rigor of this selected indicator. There's a reference to the contract section there at 2.15.3. With respect to student recruitment and enrollment, Midtown Public Charter Schools shall enroll the required number of underserved students in accordance with Mississippi Codes 372823, Section 5. That area is the underserved student composition of a charter school enrollment. Collectively must reflect the students of all ages attending the school in which the charter school is located, to be defined for the purpose of this chapter as being at least 80% of that population. During the last, this is an aside and not from the report directly or in this section, but Midtown was out of compliance with respect to this. I believe, Vanda, correct me if I'm wrong, their goal was 10% and they were at 7.5, is that correct? Yeah, I couldn't hear you.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. So that would be an area that they would need to focus on, in particular around enrollment and recruitment of the underserved population, in particular those children with special needs. With respect to board governance, they shall restructure their governance to ensure all board members are knowledgeable in the following areas: the contract terms between MCSAB and Midtown. So what that means is that the Midtown Charter School authorized, their governance board should understand the contract terms between us and them. They should understand the annual performance framework, student performance grades. They should understand the restructuring and governance and oversight, and develop a plan to do such things as communicate with parents, stakeholders, develop a protocol and a communication plan in the condition that there should be a potential closure, and use specific and measurable terms, time-specific goals for measuring outcomes and progress of essential terms. Finally, they need to align their fiscal plan for improving student outcomes to ensure the fiscal plan includes sufficient funding to address the academic needs of all students, and a financial policy and procedures manual specifically dedicated for Midtown Public Charter School, independent of Midtown partners. There's a timeline specific to that where each area of their plans are due between May 1st and final approval on June 15th for a new contract to begin on July 1. You can see on page 33 and 34 the independent evaluators outside of Dr. Brumfield and myself. We had 2 external experts in the areas, and their bios are available. I know I went over that quickly, but are there any questions or concerns or comments from the board before this is released to the schools?
Again, I'm a little concerned that the dates, and we've talked about this before, what is the process that we would have to go through to modify these due dates based on the restrictions that everybody has under the virus? Is it something that we do? Is it something that the legislature has to do? What has to happen?
I'm going to let Avery respond to that. I suspect I have an answer, but I would hate to give you an incorrect answer there. Avery?
Hey, it took me a second to unmute. Could you repeat the question again?
I understand that we don't, at this point, we don't have any requests from any of the schools to revise or extend any of the deadline dates, but but they haven't seen this yet. So in anticipation
Right.
that they may request that, do we have the authority to do it?
Yes, you certainly have the authority to do it. Whether they make the request or not, if y'all make a determination that it would be in the best interest of moving forward, you can. But if you feel that they can comply and you want to move forward, then you can go that way. You definitely have the authority. It's regulatory. It's not state law. But even then, there are, I think, 1 or 2 deadlines that are in the statute, right?
Oh, Avery,
Lisa?
yes, Avery, all of those statutes or all those timelines are in statute. There's that 90-day.
But we have, right, and we do, under the executive order, as long as it's still in place, we do have the authority to suspend not only regulatory things such as our policies, procedures, and regulations filed with Secretary of State, but also the statutes. So if we had to, we could modify those as well.
Okay, that was my concern. I knew that these dates were in the statutes, and I wanted to make sure that we had the authority either under the executive order or some other way that you could figure out that if we needed to, we could extend the dates.
I'd like to just point out one thing in particular, and Avery, we may have to work through some of these details as well. Now, the deadlines or the outline for a draft version of a report in response those are our internal deadlines, right? So those are not statutory. However,
right, the one,
yeah,
right.
The ones on page 33, it's in your document there. Those timelines, the academic plan, the student recruitment and enrollment plan, and so forth, all the way to the contract, those are internal deadlines. The only one that would not be would be related to when the new contract would begin, which would be when the new fiscal year begins, which would be July 1. And so we would want to move as prudently as we can to get through each one of those timelines to ensure that if we're up and running, and hopefully we will be by the time the new fiscal year starts, that we have contracts in place that address all of these areas.
That answers my question.
Okay, thank you.
So will districts, LEAs, charter schools, have an opportunity to meet these targets in light of, when I look at the academic plan, so kids have missed academic seat time. Also, when you begin to think about student recruitment and enrollment, certainly this impacts that profoundly.
Absolutely.
And I don't know how other areas will be impacted.
Right. I think once the schools, and I hate to speak for the schools, but I would think that once they receive this entire document and they have an opportunity to look at what they submitted in their application versus what the requests are to support the improvement of the school going forward, that both Dr. Hendricks and I would be able to have some conversation around that. I can bring back to the board any of their concerns with respect to the timeline, and then we could adjust or modify as needed with respect to those areas. Is that helpful, Quentin, or do you have some other thoughts around that?
Well, so I guess as far as the academic plan is concerned, you could identify other data points rather than just the state assessment.
Oh,
Or-
sure.
Yeah.
And there is the site selected indicator that is required in there as well.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Moving forward then, if no more questions about Midtown. Okay. So with respect to Reimagine Prep, the entire process, including the summary task and the reviewers and all of the things that I covered around Midtown, are identical for Reimagine Prep, with the same 4 evaluators reviewing their application and coming to their determination with respect to renewal. And so if you turn to page 44 in your board packet, you'll find the summary recommendation. And the evaluation committee has recommended a 5-year renewal for Reimagine Prep. Their record of performance, I'm getting tongue-tied after reading all these things. I'm not used to reading so much. Record of performance, the effective academic program meets expectations. The financial success of Reimagine Prep meets expectations. And the organizational success of Reimagine Prep meets expectations. There are no conditions around the school in terms of renewal, and the recommendation again is to move forward with a 5-year contract beginning July 1 of 2020.
That's good news.
Yeah. Any questions or comments on Reimagine?
Dr. Kamachara, this is Carolyn Willis. Just a question about the time length of the contract. With the previous for Midtown, we saw a 3-year, and then with this one, we saw a 5-year. What rubric is used to determine how many years of renewal?
That's a great question. Thank you for bringing that up. There is in the guidance a chart specific to the conditions that are met and the number of years that can be extended to offer a range of years with conditions or with no conditions. And so in that guidance that you all approved back in September, that's where that comes from.
Thank you. I've forgotten about that. Thank you for reminding me.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, so that ends then I believe the committee reports, and I believe we're ready for new business.
I'm scrolling back up here. All right, we'll move forward with new business. Dr. Kay, are you going to walk us through items B? How are we going to do this?
I will. I'll walk through everything if you need me to.
Okay, sure.
Okay, happy to do it. All right, then beginning under new business for just reference only until we get to that section. There's a comparative analysis for items B through E beginning on page 54, and we'll come back to that. Under item A, for your consideration, and this is similar to what Mr. Billingsley had referenced earlier, We have revised the milestones for the 2020 Call for Quality Schools application cycle and ask that you extend those in light of the COVID-19 situation. This is an internal but board approved set of milestones. And so this would extend the entire application cycle out about a month, giving people more time in light of this current conditions to craft their application and get through stage 1, 2, and 3 of the application cycle. So we would ask that the board consider approving and extending those milestones.
Okay. Can we stop and vote on this right here, Avery?
Yes.
So
I'll
may I
make a
have a,
motion.
thank you, Mr. Speed. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Billingsley. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Item B.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chairman, on page 54, you'll find a technical assistance comparative analysis. When we released the RFPs for technical assistance through the CSP, what we did together as a team is we crafted a rubric that was developed against the deliverables in each one of the RFPs. We received proposals from Champ Carter for technical assistance through the CSP and a separate proposal for technical assistance for the toolkit also through the CSP. We received a proposal for technical assistance again from Professional Polish for the toolkit and for the CSP, which is ongoing of work with our schools through the CSP, those schools that are either in their startup phase, such as LaFleur Legacy, or hopefully schools that will be in their startup phase in the fall, and those schools that are already receiving funds through the CSP, as well as the applicants in the cycle. We also received a proposal from Mississippi First for the annual satisfaction survey of parents. That is the only proposal we received for that. And we received a application support proposal from SchoolWorks for support on the application cycle, and that is in reviewing the applications that are submitted through stages 1, 2, and 3 of the application cycle. The team at MCSAB, Jordan, Vanda, and myself, actually reviewed each one of these proposals. We looked at whether or not against the published criteria they met, exceeded, approached, or failed to meet the recommendations that were in there, or the standards that were in there. And then we rated them on that rubric, and you'll find those scores there available for your review. And as we get into each item individually then under B, A, B, or B, C, and D, and E, then we'll have individual recommendations for each. But what I wanted you to see here is that we did not receive a proposal for recruitment of high quality charter schools, which is really disconcerting to me. I was hopeful that we would receive something in terms of recruitment, and we did not receive anything from MSEA, which was actually written into the grant initially. So I was disappointed again that we didn't receive any proposal from them. But again, back to the ones received: Champ Carter, Professional Polish, Mississippi First, and SchoolWorks. So moving in then to the individuals proposals. Under item B, you have an approval request for Champ Carter proposal to conduct technical assistance as required by the CSP, and this is in particular with respect to the toolkit that's outlined in the grant.
Please have a motion for item B for approval of Champ Carter to provide TA as a result of the competitive process.
Is this a recommendation of the staff?
Yes, sir, this is our recommendation.
Okay. I so move.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, under item C, you will have a recommendation or an approval for professional polish, which would be to conduct technical assistance, including that applicant support that I referenced earlier. This is an incredibly important piece of the work with the CSP, and we would respectfully ask that the board consider approving that as well.
Thank you very much. May I have a motion to approve item C?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Item D, Mississippi
Item-
First.
Item D is the proposal from Mississippi First to conduct survey of stakeholders. Mississippi First has done this in the past and done a beautiful job for us, and we appreciate their partnership and look forward to your approval should you be kind enough to do so with item D.
I move for approval.
Thank you, Mr. Billington. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Willis. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Item E,
Item E is the proposal from SchoolWorks to conduct the application evaluation support for the 2020 Call for Quality Schools. This is not funded through the CSP. I might add this will come through the general budget.
okay.
I move we approve this.
Thank you, Mr. Billings. Second, may I please have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Speed. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, item F, approval of the contract for LaFleur Legacy.
Vanda, do you want to pick up item F, please, ma'am?
Sure, I can. Item F is just, we're seeking approval for LaFleur Legacy contract amendment. When their first contract was generated, they were not actually able to locate a building. Now they have found a building in Greenwood and are getting started there. So they have amended their contract with their new location and address.
Have you all seen the
So
building?
move.
Yes, I have.
Vanda
Once
has seen it.
Yes, I went there to offer the CSP pre-opening training, and so I was able to do a walkthrough through their building there in Greenwood, and it is very beautiful, very beautiful.
What's the address of the new building?
Ms. Wilson, I'm sorry, could you ask that question?
What is the address of the building?
I would have to be, I think it's 500 Washington Street in Greenwood. I would have to double check that to be certain, but I think it's 500 Washington Street there. It's actually an attachment with the First Baptist Church of Greenwood.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We have a motion.
I can verify that address for you. It's 500 West Washington Street. So that's right, Vanda.
Thank you.
We have a motion on the floor by Mr. Speed to accept this amendment from LaFleur Legacy. LaFleur Legacy. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Item G.
Item G is a quote for some technology support for the boardroom, which I'm not sure if we're going to need for the next couple of months. But when we do get back into the office, we're going to need a new microphone, the microphone that sits on the desk for people that are guest speakers presenting, or when Denise is presenting or someone else is presenting to the board. That microphone has just died and we need a new one. We were able to get a couple of quotes. Jordan reached out and got a couple of quotes. This was the lowest and best for us in terms of support. And so we would ask the board consider approving that purchase.
May I please have a motion for item G for approval of academic technologies, the quote.
I so
So
move.
move.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Willis. Thank you, Mr. Billingsley. All in favor? Aye.
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 Item H, renewal recommendation reports.
Yes, item H and item I together. We would just ask the board would consider accepting the draft. This is not an approval, only an acceptance of these reports so that we might share them with the schools and post them on our website accordingly. So again, if the board would consider the acceptance of the draft renewal recommendation as presented for Midtown Public School and the renewal recommendation report as presented for Reimagine Prep.
Are you asking for the draft to become the official word, or are you asking for us to allow you to present the draft to them?
Except for us to allow the draft as presented to them.
Okay, I will move that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Billingsley. May I have a second for items H and J? I.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Speed. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Our next item is consideration for executive session. Do we need an executive? No executive session? Very good. Public comment period.
Okay, I can open that up. If anybody would like to put into the chat, I can open up the chat, and if anybody has a public comment, they can do so at this time. And then we can open them up, unmute them. I'm just gonna go ahead and see if I can unmute everybody at this point. Let's see if I can go down, unmute all. Okay, guys, everybody that is in attendance at the board meeting right now is unmuted. So we can see some of who you are. We can see, well, you should be unmuted. It was supposed to unmute everybody. But this is a time for public comment, and I don't know why it's not unmuting.
Thank you, Dr. Lisa. I'm at a school, so I'm muting myself.
Oh,
We're doing laptop distribution today.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody can everybody hear me, and does anybody have a comment for public comment that they'd like to make at this time?
Appropriate wait time, I think.
You snooze, you lose.
The next item is our next meeting is scheduled for April the 20th at 10 a.m.
Yes.
I don't know if this will be a Zoom meeting or not, but we'll have to see.
Yeah.
You'll do the posting.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Lisa, again, you and your staff for all of your work. We really appreciate what you've done to move things forward. Now, please have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Billingsley.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Thank you all. Have a good day.
Thanks, everybody.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks, everybody.